Crusader Kings 3 is a grand strategy game created by the talented fellows over at Paradox Interactive, where you take the place of a dynasty, a family line, an absolute line of great individuals. When one dies, you become your heir in a bizarre soul transference, which, as you can imagine, in the medieval period, that happened a lot. The game was released on September 1st, 2020, and it was a sequel to the very surprising Crusader Kings 2, which was released 8 years ago. When looking at the game Crusader Kings 2, what is that? I'm sorry, just looking at Crusader Kings 2, it makes me violently sick. Oh. So the first thing you might notice from Crusader Kings 2 to Crusader Kings 3 is how much cleaner and nicer it looks. You can easily see where and what everything is. It's all uniform, nice. Whereas in Crusader Kings 2, there's like 15 different map types, all the icons just look the same. The map is a monstrosity of colors and borders. I honestly can't tell what's going on 95% of the time. But in Crusader Kings 3, it's nice, it's clean, it's just beautiful. It is peak performance. It is what I, myself, aspire to look like. You have bigger icons. You have better looking people. You have so much cleaner everything. It takes what Crusader Kings 2 was, which was a fantastic grand strategy game that was horribly difficult to get into, and makes it into something anyone can get into. You can pick this up and just start, which comes with pros and cons. To the devoted audience, that's an oversimplification, and it makes it too easy to get into. It's like, what did they do to our game? It's no longer a niche, overcomplicated, but amazing game like Dwarf Fortress, for example. That's an amazing game that's extremely overcomplicated, and now it's simplified so you can immediately get into it. Another game series that was similar was Civilization 5 to 6, or even 4 to 5, or any of them really. They're all in the whole making it simplified so you could get into it easier and reaching a broader audience. Well, for one, I think that's a brilliant idea. Why? Well, I'm not the smartest of individuals. I can't just spend hours and hours to get into a game. Well, I could, but I've got other things I like to do. And what's even worse is when you have friends you want to play with, but they don't want to spend time to get into it. So, Crusader Kings 3 to 2, you could far more easily get someone into 3 than you could into 2. Now, CK2, as we all see, has a huge, dense wall of information that just kind of collides with you. So, CK3, while it is easier, is still a lot of information, so where do you begin? Well, the first major change from Crusader Kings 2 to 3 is the lifestyle choice. In Crusader Kings 2, this was just a button you would click and get random events. Now it is much better. What they have now is closer to an RPG style tree of choices and perks, where depending on what of your 3 actual choices, and depending on which of your 3 trees, will give you different perks that benefit, or in some cases come with a detriment to your character, and it'll give you the random choices. This tree specifically gives you a choice of 3 different lifestyle choices, 3 different trees, and 5 different branches. Now, this choice comes with some downsides. Some are very strong, some are weaker, and it can seem a bit needlessly complicated and adding another needless faction to balance. However, I think it was a great addition, and I think it was a stroke of genius. Why? Well, Crusader Kings is a grand strategy game that's unique because it kind of blends you with a role-playing element. You are playing as an individual, and when that individual dies, you play as a new individual. Or, you're not playing as a civilization or country, you are the person ruling it. And that, I think, is one of its biggest strengths. It's what I really like about it. And so, taking the lifestyle focus and turning it into the trees, well, that makes you able to roleplay much better. You can seamlessly blend yourself into the character and disassociate from reality easier if you can roleplay as a character and feel like you are this character. If you want to play as a rogue and kidnap everyone, you can do that far easier here than you could in the other game. Or at least, if not easier, because there's less options, easier to see the change and feel impactful. Instead of just clicking this intrigue, now it's the entire tree. Now, I mentioned the random events. Well, depending on which of the three you click, that's how the events come up that'll help, harm, benefit, what have you, your character. If you want conquest, you go down the martial tree, and you'll get things that'll come up that'll help you improve your martial status. Maybe you'll be training with troops, and then you get a bonus to troops, or maybe you get perks, what have you. Or if you want to terrify the living shit out of your subjects, you go down the dread tree, and everyone will fear you as the dreaded queen or king of your kingdom. Or maybe an empress, or maybe just a count. This adds another layer to the roleplay, but this has always been in Crusader Kings, at least since Crusader Kings 2. Besides this, you have another great way to improve your stats. This is in the form of your spouse, or your council. The spouse, you can choose which benefits to give your person, but in general, they tend to just be a way to get kids and also a slight bonus to stats. And, well, a few random events here and there. Just like real life, I imagine. But the council is here to advise you, but in reality, you tend to just tell them what to do. For instance, tell your marshal to go terrorize the peasants and tell them to stop revolting, or maybe you can tell your bishop to go get rid of the heathens that don't worship the one true waifuism. Only weebists are allowed in the United Kingdoms. You've now entirely become the person. You are pious. You are prestigious. You have land, an entire swath of castles, cities, peasants under your control. You are an emperor. But what can and do you do in the medieval era as just a man in power? Well, that can be broken down into quite a few categories. First, focusing on the other realms. May that be improving diplomatic relation, conquest, or setting up for conquest. For example, let's say you want to unite the Empire of Britannia. Well, you notice that Scotland is being a bit of an asshole. They have quite a bit of land that they're not sharing, but you have enough land that you create the Kingdom of England. Now, picture this. You have England, but wait, the de jure version of England includes a lot of land that's in Scotland. Well now, you can march right up to the King of Scotland and tell him, hey, that land belongs to me. And then you start a war and you conquest. It's as simple as that. Other ways include marrying off your daughter in a matrilineal way, so maybe you can get some claims later. You marry her to let's say the King of Scotland's one of his sons, then you just kill a few of them, and now your daughter's in line. Well, if it was matrilineal or not, that gives you sort of a case to say why you should be able to take that land. Now, I don't understand how a lot of this works, but I know there's some very, very clever ways to completely take huge swaths of land by de jure, which is your right to own that land. The next category is focusing on your own realm. May that be creating vassals, taking land from vassals, making duchies, or building up infrastructure, such as making castles or things like that that'll just make you stronger in the long run because it'll give you taxes and more men. Or taking land from vassals, they'll hate you, but hey, who cares if they're scared of you? And then the final branch or container of what you can do in this game is the decisions. These range anywhere from going on a pilgrimage to one of your holy sites, throwing a feast, or making a kingdom of your own. Maybe even refounding the Holy Roman Empire. The choice is kind of yours, and you can choose what you want to work towards. Now, I will say these tend to be a little barren right now, as it kind of shoves you into the loop, where you are just go on a pilgrimage, wait for that to be done, go on a feast, wait for that to be done, and then, go on a hunt. This is a problem with the game currently, that there just isn't too much in that realm to do. You can have endless hours of fun just conquesting and going around doing whatever you want, but the basic decisions currently just kind of range from spending gold to gain prestige or spending gold to gain piety. There are a few decisions you can unlock by doing other things, such as the ability to kill yourself or the ability to make a new religion, but these are sort of one-off chances. They don't happen too frequently. And a lot of them is kind of dependent on what religion you have, such as one of them tells you the ability to kill yourself. It's kind of interesting. You need to have faith in order to kill yourself. You can't just choose, hey, today's the end of my life. Now, I was talking about conquest and how you can do some clever things like taking huge swaths of land. But this game is unique. There's a very special way to go about getting land and how you can actually declare war. In other games like Civilization, you can just say, fuck you, Saudi Arabia, and declare war, and suddenly you're at war. There may be diplomatic penalties, like they may not like you, but hey, you're going to take their land and they honestly can't stop you. In Crusader Kings 3, you can't just declare war. You have to have a reason. People need to support you, and you need to tell them, hey, there's a reason I'm declaring war. It is my right to take what you have. There's a few ways you can just do this. Different cultures and different religions give you different ways to do this. At the base level, you can use your bishop. This is different from Crusader Kings 2, where you could have used your diplomatic advisory to fabricate a claim on the land. And this is basically saying, hey, my king has a right to this county and you can go to war over it, and it immediately goes to you. Other ways include with Catholicism, or if you create your own, like the weebist society I constructed, you can cause holy wars, and you go take land from the infidels. Imagine this: the Kingdom of England is suddenly overtaken and crowded by weebs, and you, as the Pope of Catholicism, you don't like that. So you say, hey, fellow Catholics, let's go invade England and take the kingdom for ourselves. The heresy of weebism has no right to belong there. That's another way. Along that line, Vikings have their own way of taking land and declaring war. That's in the form of conquest. You don't like your neighbor? Conquest and make them yourselves. Eventually, you can unite all of the kingdoms of Norway, Denmark, Sweden, what have you, just by simply conquest and subjugation. Now, that's the basics of the game. But let me give you a few more examples of what happened in my first playthrough. Now, I already started as the Kingdom of Mercia, the petty kingdom. So this will not be indicative of every playthrough. This will be wholly focused on the English, Anglo-Saxon, and the three religions I was part of: Catholicism, Insular Christianity, and eventually Weebism. So if you play as a Viking or as an African tribe or what have you, it's going to look pretty different, and you're going to have different tools at your disposal, such as being able to raid, which is just raise your army and go take some gold and come back. One thing that's always nice, practicing eugenics. You see a beautiful, intelligent, or healthy woman, you can marry her to yourself, who is a man presumably in this example, and then suddenly pass these congenital traits on until you create the perfect specimens. But who cares if there's a risk of inbreeding when you can make a pure blood that is just stronger than that average stock? Notice that the Pope is being ornery. Create your own religion and spread it throughout the world. Notice that this religion also breaks down the barriers of love. Who cares? Seduce your own daughter and have a grandson and a son at the same time. That actually happened. Focused on your family or your religion, take a nice stroll to your dungeons. But wait, you're a sadistic queen that's one step away from breaking psychologically. So torture and maim your inhabitants until you get a stroke of genius and turn them into an art project. This was an actual event I had happen, where the options were torture them until they're dead and cherish the screams, flay them and put them up like an art project for everyone to see, or break their mind and then send them back as a husk of what they once were with no personality. I shudder every time I think about this quest line. It was amazing, but amazingly grotesque and dark. It just makes me feel horrible just experiencing it. This game really has no cohesive limits. It's a veritable medieval sandbox in your computer backyard. If you see something, you generally have a way to do it. And if you can't do it yet, give the developers a little while and they'll create a DLC that lets you do it. The only real limiters is how much people know you, how much God knows you, or how much money you have. But that's kind of also the issue with Crusader Kings 3. Crusader Kings 2 has had 8 full years of development with DLC being added, making it a much, much deeper game, while 3 was just released, and so we're still waiting for the DLC to come out. So if you're interested, you might want to wait and see what the first DLC is before hopping on. But if you like what I've said and like what you see, go ahead and pick up the game now. You will not be disappointed. It is a great game, and you can still have hundreds of hours of fun. However, the game is still in a very foundational setting. You can't do all that much besides just conquesting and making bigger. And where in the other game, Crusader Kings 2, at the end of the game it tells you how you stacked up against other families, this game doesn't really have that. It just ends and tells you to get the fuck out. So the game is far from perfect. However, the game is still very fun. And that's really what you want from a game. You're not looking for some art project that destroys the medium and gives you something that's probably unfun but wholly unique. You want something that is decently unique, fun, you can play it, and most importantly, it's fun. And Crusader Kings 3 is that in spades. It's fun, it's still pretty unique, and it takes the good parts of Crusader Kings 2 and improves upon them. If you think Crusader Kings 2 looks archaic, this will be a great step up for you. But if you want something that's very deep and complicated, you might just still want to play Crusader Kings 2 until DLC gets added to CK3. But for me, I'm glad I spent $80 to pre-order it the day before an impulsive decision. I still had fun. Oh boy, that was quite the video, wasn't it? Well, I'm glad you watched to the end, and I have a proposal for you. If you want to schism from society with the rest of the weebs, or as I like to call them, the weebist, then make sure you hit that subscribe button, and you can follow the Pope as well. Of course, they'll come with it some things such as holy wars, pilgrimages, you name it. We will be invading the Holy Land of Japan to take it back for our rightful hands of the weebist order, but that comes with the territory. Now, I hope you enjoyed this talk about Crusader Kings 3 and maybe gave you some insight so you know whether you want to play it or not. If anything you saw was interesting, you can buy it on Steam or various other places. If you want to save a little money, there's always Humble Bundle as well. Now, if you want to see any other videos like this, I have a whole host of them on my channel.